Hello and welcome everyone on this official platform of Legacy IAS Academy. So recently that the NCERTs of social science has undergone a radical transformation, not just in content but in ideology, perspective as well as narrative. Like for example, the stories of female rulers who defied the patriarchy are missing, while new heroes and forgotten tribal resistances have finally found a place in social science NCERT. From the destruction of temples by the Mughals to the $45 trillion looted by the British to how Shivaji became the face of resistance, this new textbook pulls no punches. But the real question is, are we getting closer to the truth? Or are we reshaping history to fit a new narrative? So stay with me as we decode every name removed, every hero added, and the deeper politics of India's new past, line by line, date by date, and fact by fact. So welcome to the story of how India's history is being reimagined and what it means for all of us, especially for UPSC aspirants. So the new social science book for class 6 to 8, they are truly a delight. And that is why right now some of the books are not available. But as I have gone through class 6, 7th and 8th class NCERT part 1, but I really loved them because I would like to tell you some key takeaways. Okay, first of all, this NCERT talks about the cultural identity of India. That is, as you can see here, as we can see here, now the India is renamed in the NCERT as Bharat. Bharat. Okay. So various names of Bharat, Jambu Dweep. Okay. So as you can see here, names of Bharat, Jambu Dweep, all these names are mentioned. And books talks about the ancient history of India from Rig Veda. These books are going to talk about India from Rig Veda. As you can see here, Rig Veda is India's most ancient text. As well as you can see here, Sapt Sindhu name, that is the land of 7 rivers. Apart from this, there are various chapters which also gives the reference of Vishnu Puran for the name called as Bharat. So there are various things like Vishnu Puran is also mentioned, which gives the reference about the name called as Bharat. And that is why this book talks about the names of different parts of India which came from Mahabharata. As you can see, Mahabharata is one of the India's most famous texts. So various names like Kashmira, then Kurukshetra, all these names, as you can see here, Prajyotisha, which is today it is called as Assam. So this book talks about the name of different parts of India which came from Mahabharata and ancient history of India. So this part 1 actually, remember this thing, did not like to talk much about Indus Valley civilization, but yes, with respect to civilization, it is also mentioned. As you can see here, these kind of charts, colorful charts are present in your new NCERT. As you can see here, timeline, beginning of Mesopotamia, then Indus Valley, Indus Saraswati civilization, clear? So these things are mentioned. So they have established fact, and remember this thing, we should not go through the ideology, but we have to go by facts. Okay. Now, after this, let's come to Vedas. Okay, in 6th class NCERT, Veda. So the 6th class NCERT book also talks about Veda as well as Vedic gods. So Vedas, which were composed around 7,000 to 4,000 years ago. Apart from this book also talks about Upanishads. Now the best part here is, like in classroom, in your advanced classes, we used to discuss various parables various stories with respect to the Upanishad, like story of Yam and Nachiket, the story of Gargi and Yagnavalkya. All these stories we used to discuss in our classroom sessions. But this time they have mentioned these stories in class 6 NCERT. As you can see here, the debate of Gargi and Yagnavalkya, which is mentioned in Brihad Aranyak Upanishad. Then the story of Shwet Ketu and the seed of reality from Chandogya Upanishad. Then Nachiket and Yam. All these stories are mentioned. So this book also talks about Upanishads and various stories which are mentioned in Upanishad. So apart from this, there is, as you can see here, chapter 7, India's cultural roots, which is related to Buddhism and all. So there is a dedicated chapter related to cultural roots of India, which talks about Hinduism, Buddhism, as well as Jain culture. Clear? Apart from this, now as you can see here, another important chapter. Now this is very important for your Indian society, which is given in class 6 NCERT. Class 6 NCERT, family and community. See, there is no mention of LGBT or the typical आज जो narrative चल रहा है, my life, my rules. These narratives are not there. Instead, the book, this chapter beautifully emphasizes on the importance of family system. Okay, and even they are deciding a separate chapter to it. So this is the chapter which is related to family and community. So reading this chapter was truly a treat actually, especially with the lovely family photographs are included in this chapter. Okay, so remember this thing, this chapter is also very important. Now if you go through the chapter number 10 in this same NCERT, which is related to your polity, that means what is the mode of preparation in UPSC? Integrated GS course. And this time NCERTs, they have given in an each and every information subjects in an integrated manner. So what a subtle and thoughtful way to connect the ancient Indian heritage and democracy. So as you can see here, grassroots democracy and governance. Okay, so this is the best way that they have linked Indian. So as you can see, that ancient Indian heritage with democracy. So there is a chapter on democracy. Even it begins with a quote from the Mahabharata. As you can see here, this chapter of polity begins with the quote of Mahabharata. Now these things, now remember this thing, these NCERTs are going to teach you how to write an essay even in UPSC examination. Anecdotes. So these NCERTs are fruitful for your preparation. So as you can see here, the quote from Mahabharata. Okay. Then apart from this, there is a chapter on new beginnings, cities and state, which is related to the emergence of empire in ancient times, like Mauryan Empire. Okay, so there is a chapter of cities as well as states, which starts from the quote of great Chanakya, as you can see here, Kautilya. Okay, so not only in the beginning, but on many places, the quotes of Chanakya and ancient Indian thinkers were given in this NCERT. Now, what is not there, है ना? जो चीजें हैं वो तो हमें पता ही है, इसमें दिया हुआ क्या क्या चीजें, कौन सा प्रोपेगेंडा नहीं है. There is no oppressor or oppressed Marxist propaganda in these NCERTs. Then apart from this, as you can see here, there is a chapter on Jati and Varna. Okay, so there is a chapter on Jati and Varna system, and it beautifully talks about how caste system was evolved by the paternal profession and how all these groups complemented each other and lived in harmony. So these things are also mentioned in this NCERT. Clear? So there are actually 3 dedicated chapters, as you can see here. The Gupta era, an age of tireless creativity, chapter number 7 in class 6 NCERT. So there, now remember this thing, there are 3 dedicated chapters that talks about Indian kings who ruled from 300 AD to 1000 AD. Now they cover almost all great Indian kings who were always neglected in previous books. So this is truly the best chapter that I have found. Clear? Because it beautifully explains the, you can say, sacredness of Indian land also. Now apart from this chapter number 8, it is very important how the land becomes sacred And here the chapter starts with the quote of Bhagavad Puran. Okay, the air, fire, water, earth, planet, all creatures, direction, trees and plants, rivers and seas are organs of Supreme Lord's body. Okay, so this chapter beautifully explains the sacredness of Indian land, emphasizing that India is not just a piece of a land but a holy and revered place. Okay, then as you can see here, this chapter also talks about the sacred Tirath of India, which is scattered all over in different parts of India. Sacred Tirath. So this chapter also talks about the sacred Tirath. Now, for the first time in NCERT, they have mentioned about Kumbh Mela. So the chapter also talks in detail about the sacred Kumbh Mela. Okay, so these things are very important, which is like this is for the first time which we are witnessing that different kind of stories are there. Then as you can see here, sacred ecology, rivers and sangams, confluence of rivers. Okay, so this chapter talks about the how rivers and mountains of India are not just river and mountains, they are sacred places and origin of our culture. So throughout the chapter, they have presented a beautiful shloka. As you can see here, they have presented a beautiful shloka, okay, from the Purans. Now, apart from this, so this is related to class 6 and 7th NCERT. Now, apart from this, if you see, so overall we can say that throughout the places they mention about the culture of India and which is linked with geography, history and even polity. Now, after this, class 8th NCERT, if we see class 8th NCERT, so NCERT, they have also launched different kinds of perspectives and they have added various new things, new dimensions. Now, these books are very different from the old NCERTs because they follow the new education policy of 2020. Why? Now, as you can see here, class 8th NCERT content, table of content. First, India and the world, that is land and the people, natural resources and their use. Then, tapestry of the past. This is related to history. Then, in the same NCERT, governance and democracy, which is related to polity. So they have linked everything. Okay, so this is actually based on new education policy of 2020 and national curriculum framework of 2023. Okay, अब सवाल ये उठता है from class 8th NCERT, what are the things that have been removed? Okay, for example, so this is class 8th part 1 NCERT. So history starts from chapter 2, 3 and 4. So first thing is the reshaping of Indian political map, then rise of Marathas and colonial era. Okay, 3 chapters, 3 different themes. Now, what are the things that new NCERTs have removed? So let me tell you, they have removed the women icons, which were mentioned in earlier NCERT. Like, who are the women icons who are removed? Razia Sultan. Razia Sultan, who ruled from 1236 to 1240, once the only women ruler of Delhi Sultanate. Now she is no longer mentioned. Then another important woman, Noor Jahan from Mughal Empire, is also not mentioned. Okay, Noor Jahan is also removed, who was the powerful wife of Mughal emperor, whose name was on the coins as well as royal seals also. But her story has been removed. Then what are the things which have been removed? So as you can see here, the content of NCERT, this reshaping of India's political map, it talks about Delhi Sultanate and Mughal Empire in a single chapter. And then directly comes rise of Marathas. There is no reference of Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali. So Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali is also removed from new NCERT. Tipu Sultan, who is also called as the Tiger of Mysore, mentioned 16 times in old books, old textbook, but he is now completely removed. Hyder Ali, who was Tipu Sultan's father and predecessor, and also he is also removed. Now, 4 Anglo-Mysore wars, have been deleted. Okay, अब सवाल ये उठता है, who has been added or expanded in new NCERT? So as you can see here, rise of Marathas. So who has been added? So first of all, I am going to talk about the new women rulers who have been added, new women icons now in new NCERT. So first, as you can see here, Rani Durgavati, new women icon. Rani Durgavati was the Gond queen and she fought against Akbar in 1564. Then another important women ruler was Tarabai, the great, the mighty Maratha woman. Tarabai, she is described as fearless warrior queen who resisted against Aurangzeb. Then another important women which is mentioned, Ahilyabai Holkar. Ji haan, Ahilyabai Holkar. She built and restored the hundreds of temples as well as roads across India. Then apart from this, Begum Hazrat Mahal is also added. Begum Hazrat Mahal, she joined the revolt of 1857, which is featured in chapter number 4 of class 8th NCERT. Then another focus of class 8th NCERT is on Marathas. This time they have given a separate chapter for Marathas. Okay. Now a whole new chapter is there, like rise of the Marathas is added. Now this chapter also highlights the three Anglo-Maratha war which was started from 1775 till 1880. Now in this chapter, Shivaji is also praised, and Shivaji is praised for that he founded the navy. As you can see there, see these pictures, है ना, Maratha ships attacking English ships. Okay, so as you can see here that in 1665 4 ships from Shivaji's fleet reached Muscat. Okay, so Shivaji, who founded navy, and he took Surat but did not destroy religious places. This is mentioned in new NCERT, and this NCERT mentioned that he rebuilt temples, supported Sanskrit as well as Marathi culture. Then come to Ahilyabai Holkar. Ahilyabai Holkar is also mentioned, just now I have said. So Ahilyabai Holkar, it is said that Ahilyabai Holkar, she rebuilt Kashi Vishwanath temple which was destroyed by Aurangzeb. She rebuilt Somnath temple which was destroyed by Mahmud of Ghazni. Okay, so these things are mentioned in new NCERT. Now the question here is how Mughal emperors are shown. So Mughal emperors are mentioned in chapter number 2 of class 8th NCERT, and the title is Reshaping India's Political Map. Okay, now try to understand. So first, as you can see here, the timeline. Okay, now first with respect to Babur. So Babur is described as cultured, loved poetry, nature and architecture. And Babur is also described as brutal, who created towers of skulls, enslaved women as well as children. These things are mentioned, and this time, as you can see here, they talked about Babur Nama also. Then let's come to Akbar. Now with respect to Akbar, some of the perspectives have been changed. Akbar is mentioned as a mix of brutality as well as tolerance, who ordered the killing of 30,000 civilians at Chittor. As you can see here, that this NCERT mentions that Akbar, he had ordered for the killing of 30,000 civilians, that he showed no mercy at Chittor. Clear? So this is mentioned this time, that he ordered killing of 30,000 civilians at Chittor. And a quote from Akbar shows that destruction of temples and imposition of Islam. And then this history also mentioned that gradually when he started understanding the religion, then he leaned towards peace later in life. Then after this NCERT also mentions about Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb, who destroyed temples and issued farmans to that effect. And this NCERT also mentioned that Aurangzeb destroyed Gurudwaras, Jain temples, temples at Banaras, Mathura, Somnath, etc. Okay, and it is mentioned that Aurangzeb has also persecuted Sufis and Zoroastrians. Okay, now apart from this, next chapter which is related to history, that is colonial era in India. Colonial era. Now colonial era is mentioned as loot of India. The colonial era, loot of India. like Britain looted India's wealth. This is as per US historian Will Durant. Will Durant ने क्या कहा? Britain looted India's wealth. Then, as you can see here, this personality William Digby. William Digby mentioned that modern England has been made great by India's wealth. Modern England कैसे बना है? इंडिया की wealth की वजह से. And that is why Indian economist Utsa Patnaik mentioned that British extracted around $45 trillion from India from 1765 to 1938. That is 13 times of Britain's GDP in 2023. And Indians were made to pay for railways, telegraph, and British wars also. So various quotations and highlights are mentioned in these new NCERTs with respect to colonial era. Now, what are those things? Like, for example, Britishers, they are mentioned as plunderer, exploitation was there, trade dominance, Christianization. This is how British ruled India. And Britishers destroyed the village level governance in India, and they have imposed the foreign system. Then English education system has created a class of loyal to the British, which is, the quote is also mentioned by Thomas Macaulay. And apart from this, British also wiped out the traditional schools like Pathshalas, Madrasas, as well as Viharas. Okay, so various reports have been mentioned in this chapter. Reports noted that 1 to 1.5 lakh schools in Bengal, Bihar, before the colonial rule were there. Okay, and not only this, so not only these things, other resistance movements are also added, like Maharana Pratap, Ahoms of Assam. So this time, this NCERT has mentioned about other resistance, small rulers also, like Maharana Pratap, escape and survival against the Mughals. Ahoms of Assam, who resisted the Aurangzeb's army. Then Jat, Bhils, Gond, Santals, Kush tribe, who resisted the this Mughal power. Okay. Now, apart from this, Europeans who came after the Vasco da Gama, like Portuguese. So अब यहाँ पर यूरोपियन का पर्सपेक्टिव कैसे दिया हुआ है? Like for example, Vasco da Gama tortured and killed merchants and bombarded Calicut. Then religious persecution of Hindus, Muslims, Jews, and even Christian converts also. Now, with respect to French, this NCERT mentions that Dupleix destroyed the there was one city, there was one temple in Pondicherry called as Veda Purishwaram. So Dupleix destroyed that Veda Purishwaram temple in Pondicherry in 1748, which was a part of Anglo-Carnatic War. Okay, so there are various changes in this new NCERT. So the structure and timeline also changes. So earlier students learned about the Delhi Sultanate, Mughals in class 7th. Now these subjects, these topics are covered in class 8th part 1 NCERT. Clear? Now class 7th textbook end before 12th century. Class 7 की जो textbook है that ends before 12th century. Now class 8th part 2 is going to cover the freedom movement, जो कि अभी वेबसाइट पर नहीं आई है, NCERT के वेबसाइट पर भी नहीं आए. So class 8th part 2 is going to cover class 8th part 2. This book is going to cover the freedom movement. It is going to cover freedom movement, that is from 1857 to 1947. Now this part is to be released in October 1825. ये कब release हो रहा है? This will be released in October 2025. Okay. Now overall, what NCERT team says? Now they are saying that we are not trying to sanitize or demonize history. Like for example, Michael Denio, who is the head of social science group at NCERT. Now he said the aim is multi-perspective understanding, not information overload. So these books actually try to show both dark periods like Mughals and colonial brutality. On the other hand, bright efforts like Maratha resistance and temple rebuilding. So bottom line we see that the new NCERT class 8th textbook as well as 7th and 6th in 2025 to 2026, they have removed the several women rulers like Razia Sultan, Noor Jahan, Tipu Sultan. They have removed, and they have added the Maratha heroes, okay, tribal resistance as well as colonial loot facts. Clear? So these NCERTs give harsh realities of Mughal as well as colonial brutality, but also some balance. So the aim, what is the aim of these new NCERT? They are just trying to align with new education policy of 2020 and reduce the content while increasing the critical thinking. Okay. So overall, if we see, history is not just about past. It is about what we choose to remember and what we allow ourselves to forget. So with this new NCERT textbook, Razia Sultan is no longer the face of women leadership. Tipu Sultan, the tiger of Mysore, is no longer in the ring. But Shivaji rose louder, and colonial brutality is called by its name, like loot, destruction, and domination. So, is this a long overdue correction of historical bias, or is it a new lens which is shaped by today's ideology? So, as educators, students, and citizens, we must ask, who writes our history? Who gets remembered? And what gets left behind in the margins of the new curriculum? So if you found this video deep dive, eye-opening, then share this video and drop your thoughts in the comment section, and do not forget to subscribe, because in the next episode we will break down part 2 of new syllabus, where the freedom struggle will be told like never before. So this is not just a lesson in history, it is a lesson in memory, and memory, my friends, is power. So this is your channel Legacy IAS Academy. Until the next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay awake. Thank you so much.